Hello, welcome back. I'm just gonna be reading more Swindle. Let's start. Ben's eyes very nearly popped out of their sockets. Do you want to pull a what? Shh, whispered Griffin at lunch recess at the playground. A heist. Like in the movies, robbery, stealing? Not stealing, Griffin admitted, stealing back. There's a big difference. Police? Are the police gonna think so? The police gonna think about a store owner ripping kids off? Griffin challenged. I swallowed him. Ben said with a sigh, never trust anybody who sounds like Swindle. He's always ultimate swindle. Griffin agreed. He sure swindled me. And the only way to get the card back is to take it. What do you say? A hand came down of Ben's shoulder. It's time for Mr. Solak medication, announced Nurse Savage. All right, Ben exclaimed. Talk to the last. Was the robbery talk to be overheard by the school nurse? He began to follow through a maze, whirling jump ropes. Griffin grabbed his friend's wrist. If you're allergic so bad, Ben asked in a low voice, why weren't you sneezing from the mold and the dust in the old Rockford house? Ben shrugged. Maybe medicine really works. Savage held open the door. Ben disappeared inside the building. What the? Some jagged sketch Griffin on the back of his neck. He wheeled around to find a sixth grader the size of an NFL linebacker sat up with a brain. And Dara, what are you doing? Griffin shouted. Can you tell? Poking you with a stick. Griffin on field testing a new invention. The dumb pick. Sorry, I thought I heard it was a coconut. Logically, Griffin slapped the branch away. It's a smart pick, you idiot. It's a miracle of technology. How would you even admit it? It's doubts your father, her brainchild to darn. You wouldn't even know what if you weren't such a snoop. I was snooping, trying to feed it himself. My mom had the paper spread out on the kitchen table. Mr. Vader, who filed the smart pick patient, yeah, the boy was way too over the school. Griffin excuse making. Sure, brilliant inventor gets some credit. You guys will be rich someday when millions of people decide to quit their jobs and the smart picking fruit. Shut up, Griffin thudded. You always got so much to say when it comes to you're nothing but. What about the old Rockford house, huh? Where were you on Friday night? I had the flu, Dara mumbled. Well, don't look like you're at door. That's 24-hour bug, Dara exclaimed. There's a lot going on. Griffin clucked despairingly. His hand reached some other sixth graders nearby. Nice to show the solidarity. You guys leaving Ben and me to stand up. Kids in this town. Sorry, Griffin, said Benson, who went to by her climbing nickname. Miss Pitch, my family was at the indoor Rockford Hall. I completed space. Me and I admitted. Marcus totally blanked, all unconvinced. You guys didn't blank. It came to filling Ben full of stories and railway spikes, possessed pets, and there's nothing as possessed as a luxured Drysdale. Animals are innocent inside, and speaking of animals, why couldn't Friday what about to litter my hamster? Pitch protested. It was a boy, Savannah reported happily. Another boy and 3 girls. Why didn't they dumb reason? They said. Logan highly naughty and screamed. I stayed home. Dara laughed. squeezing what Earth. That shows about acting is all emotion. Audience had to really believe heartbreak having a pimple. You're a pimple, Dara grunted. Whatever the reason, we're all sorry. Griffin pitch put in. We should have flaked off out way. Maybe some of us, we were a little scared, but we didn't think it was worth walking in the past to a big pile of rubble. All in the morning, I wished I would have been there. Our loss. I bet it's your loss, Griffin said, hopefully, but the fruit adventure. Babe Ruth caught an SS will chubby hands. I have no mood to tell them why our midst students were working on a creative assignment when Ben got back, deliberately avoiding Griffin, searched his eyes and took a seat next to his friend. And let's go over the plan after school. Let's work on the plan, Griffin whispered eagerly. Every second he spent with the nurse been dreading the conversation. Since a few days, Griffin's plans involved bicycle with training wheels. Ben has always been in. It had to come constant as the sunrise. What made it so difficult, Griffin? I can't, obviously. We want to do the pinpoint weak spot. Ben wasn't surprised that Griffin missed on his refusal. Griffin, on his friend, was on a mission. Nothing short of an earthquake would get his attention. You're not listening, man. I can't do it. The answer is no. The earthquake enough. What are you talking about, Griffin? Why not? Looking at him helplessly. Where do I start? It's against the law. You'll never get away with it. It's just plain wrong. It isn't wrong, Griffin shouted. What Swindle did, that's wrong. We're just sitting right again. And wrong is we're not burglars. I talk to the kids and adults can, but not this. Griffin's voice rose up the volume. The swindle wins. Shh, hissed the person from behind his desk. How can you let this jerk get away with taking advantage of us? Griffin continued to slightly lower his voice. How could we let him get rich? That's my card. My money. Our money. Because we're going to give you half. I don't want to be rich, Ben shot his. But not this way. Boys, quiet, the teacher warningly. I have to do this, Griffin pleaded. I can explain, but there's a good reason. All of my plans, this was one of the most important. You'll always say that. Every plan is most important until the next one comes along. This is true, Griffin exclaimed. The money, Griffin, Ben interrupted angrily. Since you can't work as neighbors, you're going to have to move. Ben, you're coming to sit with Logan. Griffin, you're going to take the empty desk next to Melissa. But Miss Martin, Griffin began. Now, as he gathered his papers, Griffin looked at his best friend. He mouthed the words, please. Ben could barely muster the strength to shake his head no. Griffin, despair. The year had constant thing he could relieve through floods and asteroid strikes, but unchanged the fact that Ben willingly used to follow him. Yet, with so much stake, his loyal friend had to let him down. He never felt so helpless. Chapter 6. Isn't it? The conclusion Ben had reached 3 days sitting next to the boy. The audition of the cream corner had not gone well. Logan could think of nothing. He slumped next to the desk already, the long face out like a banana, like properties, blaming his failure on everybody except himself, the cast director, his parents, asked Ben without interest. Only the great acting coach ever to come out of India, Logan told him. He's having private lessons to this guest parents are too cheap. Before Ben cast a long gaze across the classroom, Griffin said behind Melissa, what's ready for bothered Ben? Little parents, non-scenes the punishment of Marissa said 2 feet returned on their old seats, but Griffin was upset, refusing to take the part in the baseball card robbery that couldn't move that don't sit with traitors. Had Griffin declared Ben made an attempt to come back, but those words were only Ben hurt his best friend in the past 3 days. The icy silence in between them, they had become so obvious that other kids were starting to mention it. Pitch kept asking what was wrong, even though Dora commented, "We broke the doofus patrol." How could Ben even explain the same dodged go-getter qualities for the forge that man? With some of the plan, Griffin, as stubborn as a mule, came with anger. Kate had been working with for less than 2 months, and already she's landed the part at Heartburn commercials. Logan was laughing, I bet, at her. Then Kate moaned, "I can do heartburn, I can do gastritis and distress, I can do constipation like nobody's business." At least Griffin wasn't expecting. And on the other side of the room, Melissa, she had a reputation as a computer genius, but it was impossible. Well, sure that the stealthiest kid in town spent most of her time hiding long strand hair completed cover her face as Ben watched Melissa under her hair until it came certain the thin, pale skin, wide-eyed. She mumbled one word answer to Griffin's question with a loud sigh. Logan put all his books and laid his head on his desk. "What's the use? Who can think my entire career? Who can think when my entire career is falling apart? My parents are way too East Coast to understand that make it in Hollywood." Ben closed his eyes and pictured himself in a fair place, such $1 million baseball card, and only happened in the action movies. His ex-friend was like Griffin, stuck with a kid who barely opened her mouth, and then Ben stuck with who never shut up. As miserable as 6th grade became after school, well, even worse, Ben used spending all his spare time with Griffin. Wasn't just depressed, he was also bored, a toxic combination. Had biking a lot, almost if he believed he could outrun his loneliness as he pedaled hard enough that he must have passed the site of the former Rockford house dozens of times. He clearly will remains of the stone foundation and the old-fashioned mailbox out front. Markers of murder that had never lived there. The place, thinking of Griffin, just like the place made him think of Griffin. For Ben, very landmarks in town hold special Griffin context. In the school town hall, Coleman and was very long before Griffin found himself on Griffin streets, almost as if his bike knew the way. He'd ridden there on his own. Griffin often in the past wheeled up the block, turning into a familiar driveway. A woman didn't recognize him on the card. Him mistake of the card of a board sign. Ben squeezed, didn't read it. Ben squinted to read it for himself. He never was sure how exactly a bike separated the thing. He knew he was flying through the air and landed on the road, leaving so much of a skin on his left elbow on the concrete curb. The sign lady rushed over to help him. "Are you all right?" Ben noticed the pain or his bleeding arm. This house isn't for sale. Just listed this morning," she told him. "Do you need me to drive you somewhere? Is your mother home?" Ben yanked himself away. "People live here?" The door opened. Griffin peered outside. "Ben?" Ben pointed to this woman. She's trying to sell your house out from under. It's okay, Miss Bottom, Griffin told her. He's my friend. He hustled Ben inside the bathroom, injuries, his arm under running water. Calm down, man. She's a real estate agent. Real estate agent? Ben pulled from back of the sink, splattering the pinky thing, water all over the floor. You mean your house isn't really for sale? Well, it really is for sale. You're moving? Griffin nodded. All because I wouldn't do the heist? Of course not. Listen, Griffin had told us all about being family financial problems. Now Ben listened to rapt attention. That's why I got so freaking out about the Babe Ruth card. Greg concluded the whole sad story. The money would save our house, but my dad had developed his dream. I changed everything for my family. How can I let us lazy to Bitcoin man get all that away? I don't know what to say. Ben made awful past few years. I know compared to what must have been going through. No wonder he was so obsessed with the heist. He was fighting for his home and family. Despite the horror, although Griffin moving away, Ben was aware of the avenging stronger emotion. He always wondered what the pure, clear sense of purpose that would core his friends instantly all doubts misgiving about the robbery burned away and left in the series of just no the only action you might be pull off this heist. The man with the plan grinned. The baseball card heist plan of attack: gain access to the Swindle store, locate the staff behind the sales counter, burn a hole inside the safe using Dad's blowtorch, return home rich. Major obstacles: padlock gate, 7-foot high fence, and security glass in front of the door with 3 double the burglar alarm. How do we learn the keypad code? The factory X. Anybody who wires the display case must have had a few surprises up their sleeve. Silence before store at 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Swindle leaves 5:30 in a black Honda Element. Assist manager Tom Durfin closes shop at Chapter 7, 6 o'clock. On the nose, Griffin excitedly making a notepad. 2 boys were hidden at a large 9th Street common areas. Come on, Griffin, a little wiggle room. Ben complained. I get a picky brain and shut my arm. They watched Duffin get into his car parked on the curb. Griffin wrote down tomorrow assist manager or drove away. 2 boys emerged from the bush, shaking and stretching craned limbs. What are we thinking about the fence? Griffin mused. That's a fence around the lot with a burglar alarm. Ben convinced a piece of cake will do. As we can walk through the walls, hasn't figured it out yet. Does that mean it can be done? Replied Griffin. Even though it comes out to you, they cross the street before they change heading a little climbed experience. Griffin told rolling up through the grip, tumbled a terrified Ben. 2 of them landed flat on their backs on the sidewalk, clung mesh, full teeth, and staring and growling. Griffin hauled Ben upright, and they scrambled into the 9th Street cover their bush, and they wrote, "Animal control" is a large letter across the page. "Control that guy," Ben squeaked. Headset not big enough for lunch. Griffin looked thoughtful. Who knows more about animals than anybody else in town? Chapter 8. And that's where I'm going to end, guys, on Chapter 8. Thanks for watching the other video. I know we've been having some problems with that, but yeah, bye.